Hi, everybody. That first slide up there shows the founding vision of Code.org was actually inspired by a quote by Steve Jobs, which he said, "Everybody in this country should learn how to program a computer because it teaches you how to think." And there's a related number of things Steve Jobs had said similarly as well, saying that computer programming and computer science is a liberal art, not one of these vocational things that you should just learn if you want to go into that field. And as somebody who grew up as a computer scientist and learned computer programming on my own and studied in college, I chose to do this because I have a background from the tech industry and I see how badly the tech industry needs people to study computer science, but I also have a better sense of why all of our students should learn it, and this is what I wanted to talk with you about. STEM is a topic in education which a lot of people hear about. So when you hear about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, we all know that the United States is falling behind in math and science. That's a relatively old story. It's been many decades we've been trying to fix it, and we failed to fix it. But this old story masks a new and possibly bigger problem. And I'll show this problem in the sense of two graphs. The graph you see on the left shows all of math and science studying by American high school students. And there's this little sliver at the top, which is the 2% of the studying time in high school that is spent on learning computer science and computer programming. This shows all of the math and science jobs over the next 10 years and which ones are based on computer programming and software. And just these two charts side by side show a relatively large problem in terms of just planning for, are we teaching our kids the right skills? And this is within math and science, which we're failing at. So one other thing that is shocking is that fewer students are learning computer programming and computer science than 10 years ago. And that's mainly because fewer schools are teaching it than 10 years ago. And when you have fewer schools teaching something, it's somewhat natural that would happen. So the numbers add up fast in terms of why this matters. The difference between jobs in computing and students is over 1 million jobs, and it adds up to $500 million over 10 years. These are literally the highest paying salaries in the US. The job growth in this field is double the nation's average. And while I come from the tech industry, this isn't just about the tech industry. In fact, only 1/3 of software jobs are inside the tech industry. 2/3 are in manufacturing, retail, banking, government. And there's many studies that show that these jobs, because they're knowledge jobs and higher paid jobs, yield multiple additional neighborhood jobs. So if you assumed 3 or 4 jobs per software programmer, which is what a lot of longitudinal studies show, there's literally 4 or 5 million jobs we can add to the US economy if we solve this education problem. So like I said, this isn't just about tech companies or tech jobs, but I also firmly believe that this is not even just about jobs and software. It's about what's the preparation we want all of our children to have, whether they're going to become lawyers, doctors, politicians, or astronauts. There's a quote, we have a lot of quotes that we recruited leading figures in science and politics, et cetera, to provide, but this is one of my favorites. This guy basically said that knowledge of computer programming is as important as knowledge of anatomy if you want to become a doctor. And this is the guy his job is solving the cure for cancer. And his view is that basically our future pre-med students should learn this as part of getting prepared for their field in medicine. So we can fix the American dream doing this, but we need to recognize that right now only 10% of our schools even teach computer science, and it's in a decline. So it's the fastest track to the best jobs in the country, but only being taught in the best schools. And these are predominantly suburban schools, not urban schools, not rural schools. So we literally have this issue where, on the one hand, this is a fast track to a better life, and that fast track is only sort of offered to kids who already have a better life. And anybody who cares about the 99%, 1% distinction, I think everybody knows that if there's one thing we all agree about, it's we should at least give equality of opportunity. And that usually comes down to education, and this part of education is the most likely to help you get into a better opportunity because these are the highest paying jobs in the country. One challenge is that our state laws make it harder. In 40 out of our 50 states, actually it's now 39, we just fixed it in my state of Washington, computer science doesn't even count towards graduation requirements. In California, which is the mecca of the tech industry, you could study college level computer science and it still counts in the same category as learning how to put shoes on a horse. Those are in one bucket, and chemistry and biology and calculus are in a different bucket. Meanwhile, in China, it's required as a graduation requirement. So this was basically the problem that I set out to solve, and I'm going to have, so my view is that we can fix this. The first step of fixing it is building awareness. We launched a few months ago with a short film starring Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, and a number of celebrities, directed by the producer of An Inconvenient Truth. And my goal was to basically change the discussion to raise America's awareness about this. Our video went quite viral. We just actually today, for this conference, made it a short 2-minute version of the video with some of the outtakes from the previous video, and I wanted to play that for you, if it works. Oops. Can you run the video up there?
Software and computers. It used to be that was just kind of a separate area of the world, but now software touches all these different things that you use.
I think if you look in everything, I mean, there's more phones and tablets and laptops and websites, and everybody's on social media, and I mean, it's just all these different things, and everything's just moving faster. So just being in a position to kind of understand that language that's going to be the future, I mean, I think it's a good thing to do.
It's absolutely crucial to know how to code and to understand how technology is built, even if you don't choose to, make a living or be a full-time software developer. Understanding how software works, which is something that affects everything around you, from your purchases to, how you eat and just how everything works nowadays. It's really important to be able to know how it works so that you are not sort of a victim of other people's choices.
It's important for these kids right now, starting at 8 years old. It should be mandatory to be a citizen on this planet. Hey, whatever country you're from, to read and write code.
If you wait until you're an adult, you probably will never do it.
I always felt like if I didn't learn how to program, it would be like not learning how to read. The future would just be closed to me.
When I think about what we're going to be teaching in schools 5, 10, 15 years from now, I definitely think that computer science, or at least basic programming, is going to be as important of a skill as being able to do basic reading and writing. And I think we're going to look back and wonder why it took us so long to get to that point.
Any of you have any interest in fixing this problem? By the way, one thing you can do is visit our website and share the video. Another thing we did besides creating these videos, we've recruited support from dozens of leaders, politicians, business leaders, educators, doctors, lawyers, scientists, astronauts, and celebrities, literally ranging from Stephen Hawking to Snoop Dogg, or from the White House to Dr. Oz to Enrique Iglesias, a very broad range of people who have come out to say we need more kids to learn software and computer programming. We've had some incredible results from just a small set of videos and spreading them on the internet. We know that we basically struck a chord with parents, with students, etc. We were literally the #1 video on YouTube for a day, and this was ahead of Jennifer Lawrence the week after the Oscars, which was, for me, an incredible accomplishment. More importantly, we had 3.5 million students trying to learn online on our website. This, by contrast to the number of students, we have roughly 40,000 graduates a year in the entire country at the college level studying this, and about 20,000 at the high school level. And for a day, we had 3.5 million, or for a week. We had, actually by now, 700,000 people signed a petition saying that we should add this to more schools. And then the numbers that actually kind of have defined what the rest of my life is going to be about, or at least the next 10 years, we've had actually 13,000 schools reach out to us asking our help to add this to their curriculum, and over 25,000 software engineers come to us saying we want to help teach this in schools. So those two stats basically define what I'm going to be up to for the next few years. And one of my favorite things is many high schools have reached out to us saying, we played your video for our students. We used to have 12 kids a year take the computer science class. We now have 45. And there's schools now that have a CS problem because their math teacher was teaching one computer science class, and now they need to become a full-time computer science teacher, and now they need a new math teacher. So we know that we're creating change in schools that already have a computer science teacher. The problem is the 90% of schools that do not. We've also had a whole bunch of stories and outpourings of reactions, and I wanted to share 2 of them. This is one, which I can't believe is actually true, but is just still stunning. Your website has taught me more than high school and college. But this is, and if you read some of these, they're just ridiculous. Like the guy saying, I'm in South Africa and I'm gonna invest my time in starting a nonprofit to basically teach coding in South Africa. But this guy basically saying, now I know what I want to do with the rest of my life from watching a 5-minute video, which is, again, amazing. One point we've tried very hard to make is that anybody can learn to code. That there is a kind of bad picture of me teaching Eric Cantor, the House Majority Leader, how to write some code. So I want to actually have a quick show of hands. How many people here have actually written a computer program before? Wow, okay. Well, that's great. I was going to walk you through a 2-line computer program, but I will skip that. But it's worth saying I refuse to take meetings with people if they don't at least take the 2 lines sort of trial of what it's like to learn computer programming, because as all of you must know, it is nowhere near as hard as people's imaginations are. And when I learned computer programming, it wasn't machine language or ones and zeros or punch cards or the type of stuff my dad talked about, but it was still a lot more typing. Today, if you're a kid and you learn computer programming, even at the intro class in college, you're actually dragging and dropping commands onto a screen, not even using the keyboard. It's more like a game. So what I'm trying to do at Code.org for the next 3 decades, the job number 1 is to educate, to actually get computer science into schools, and to build electronic curriculum so that we can scale to 10,000 schools more quickly than the completely manual human resources-based way of using traditional textbooks and lecture plans. Can we use computers to do the teaching? The second is advocacy, to actually change the rules in the 39 states that don't even count computer science as a real course. And the third is to continue celebrating progress in this space with more videos and more marketing events and things such as that. I wanted to close with a short story of this guy, Makinde Adeagbo, and he was one of the stars in our first major viral video. Makinde came to the United States from Nigeria when he was in 2nd or 3rd grade. So an immigrant family, not from the worst of means, but definitely not at the sort of top of the sort of scale of sort of class structure. He grew up in Kentucky, and he was lucky enough to go to one of the schools in Kentucky that did teach computer science, took it in high school, and he actually took the AP exam in high school, graduated, went on to college, and a few years later got a job at Facebook as an engineer. He's now 26, retired, which is pretty awesome. And one of the things he did in his retirement is he went to Kenya to build schools. And I asked him, that's great, you took a break from sitting behind the desk to get some exercise and get out in the sun. And he said, no. What I did in Kenya to build schools is this. I work for this company that's basically building out schools city by city, and they want to know where to build the schools. And if you're doing that in America, you'd figure out where the population is and use census data, et cetera. In Africa, we don't have that. So instead, they'd use satellite imagery, and I was writing software to count rooftops by code to figure out where there's enough, where the population centers are. And then we'd want to figure out how to buy the plot of land for a school near a neighborhood. And again, one of the issues was basically finding the appropriate land. And to survey the land, we could have sent surveyors, but we wanted to do things really cheaply. So instead of having all the surveying equipment, I wrote an app for an iPhone, so the person doing the survey would just walk around the plot of land and send the data back to the headquarters to decide, is this a good plot for a school? And this is an interesting point, because whether you're building the next Facebook or whether you're trying to change the world and educate Africa, software is relevant. And for me, the most touching part of this story is Makinde, when he graduated from his high school, he was one of 2 African Americans in the entire state of Kentucky to take AP Computer Science. And now this was about 10 years ago. Today, that problem has actually not gotten better. In fact, it's gotten worse. And you may think, well, maybe there's not as many African Americans in Kentucky. In this District of Columbia, just the last year, the graduating class of high school and kids, not just the graduates, all of high school kids in 2012 in Washington, D.C., 5 African Americans took the AP exam, 2 of them passed it. And the same kind of stats are true for African Americans as they are for Hispanics, and also not quite as bad, but still ridiculous given the ratio for women. And the underrepresentation of these 3 groups in computer science is a particularly bad problem, especially when you consider that we're getting to the point where the majority of our population, if you just look at the birth rate, is going to be African Americans and Hispanics, and they have such a low representation in the field that is both defining our future as a human race and also leading to the highest paying jobs. It's a big issue for our national GDP, frankly, if we think about it. So that was my little closing story. Our vision is that every student in every school should have the opportunity to code. If you have any questions about this, my email address is up there. Please support us. If nothing else, please visit our website and share the video. And thank you so much for your time.